Hey everyone, this is Precog, and today I wanted to do a Spark Notes review of the new Moondrop Chu. This is their latest single dynamic driver IM that clocks in at roughly $20 USD for the option without the inline microphone. As usual, I don't want to waste your time, so let's get right into the review itself. In terms of the accessories, I think a lot of people are excited about the new spring tips that come included. Now personally, I'm not a big fan of these ear tips. For me, they're just a little bit too, well, springy. And I personally find that they're not conducive to the bass response of most IMs that I put them on. I think it's just maybe a product of the material itself. It's not very rigid, and so it sort of dissipates the bass response a lot of the time, at least on the IMs that I've tried them on. Here is the included case that comes with the Chu. It's not the most protective case in my opinion. As you can see, it's quite easy to sort of crush the IMs in between, but it is classy enough, and I do think it will get the job done, especially for a cheaper IM like this one. So taking a look at the Chu itself, I think that this is a pretty classy IM. The chassis itself is pretty reminiscent of the Moondrop Aria. I think it's the same sort of aluminum material and then the same sort of paint finish in general. Now, of course, the ergonomics are different on the Chu, and it also does not feature the 2-pin detachable cable, which might be a con for some listeners. So something a little bit different about this IM is that the wire actually wraps backwards when it's sort of inserted this way. Just a little thing that I would point out. And here you can see them in my ears. They are a very small IM, and I don't think most people will have issues with them. And in fact, I would say that they're a little bit too small and a little bit too loose at times in conjunction with the spring ear tips that are included. Maybe to sort of mitigate this, Moondrop has actually included these rubber ear hook guides, which is something that I don't think I've seen before. The way these ear guides work is pretty simple. You just insert the wire inside and it's held in by friction, and then you can sort of loop these around your ear. Personally, I'm not going to use them, but the option is there for you if you want to use them. Okay, let's dive into the actual sound. Straight off the bat, I think the good part about the Chu is that it is very well tuned. If you have heard any of Moondrop's single dynamic driver IMs in the past, like the Kato, the KXXS, the KXXX, the Aria, the Starfield, the Illumination, yes, they have this many single dynamic driver IMs. Well, it sounds very similar to all of them. In general, the really impressive thing about this though is that it is $20. There's really no other IM on the market, at least at the time at which I am recording this video, that has this sort of neutral analytical tuning. A common criticism that you'll see of more analytical tunings is that they are leaner and they can be a little bit shouty in the upper mid-range. But I don't really think that's a big issue. Like, it's not really a ugly thing that I would point out. It's just a what is it? It's more inherent to the signature as a whole than anything. I don't think I want to get nitty-gritty into the whole tonal balance and frequency response, but if you're someone who is after their first taste of quote-unquote balanced tuning, then I think that the Chu is going to be the best IM to buy in at. There are no real cons to this IM that I can think of, like no outright deal breakers. There are definitely cons, but there are no outright deal breakers. So with that in mind, I'm going to move on to the ugly stuff. The first negative thing about the Chu that stands out to me is the quality of its bass response. On paper, it has, I think, roughly 6 decibels of bass boost over like 1K hertz, but by ear, I would not have called it. It just does not sound very authoritative, and it does not sound like it has very much excursive impact. If you A/B it with another IM, like maybe say the Moondrop Blessing 2, which has, I think, actually a very similar level of bass, the amount of impact you're getting on the Blessing 2 is just not comparable to what the Moondrop Chu is able to deliver. The Moondrop Chu is just a very soft sounding IM in the bass. Now, to be fair, the Blessing 2 is significantly more expensive, but what I'm trying to illustrate is that it's not a matter of amplitude in the bass response between these two IMs. It's a matter of quality. Another minor issue with the Chu, a frequency response one actually, is its treble response. It is heavily lower and sort of mid-treble oriented at around 5 to 7K hertz, and the result of this is that it has a somewhat splashy treble response. In addition to this, it also has, I think, a resonance at around 12K hertz, which lends to a little bit more shimmer than it should have. And it sort of lends to that lack of control up in the treble. For sheer treble extension itself though, I will say that the Chu is a strong performer. It sounds very airy for $20, and that's quite impressive. Leaving aside the Chu itself, maybe a more ugly thing about the brand, Moondrop, would be that they are very iterative, and I say this in the sense that they've effectively made the same IM 5 or 6 times, just at different price points. Cheaper price points, mind you, which is not a bad thing, and why I can't really complain. Just in general, I don't really like the feeling of buying something today and knowing that it's not necessarily going to be obsolete, but there's going to be something better and cheaper in several months. That's just not a feeling I like to get generally. So in terms of comparisons, I guess I'll give 3 of them. The first of which is going to be the Tanstream Tanya. The Tanya is more bassy, it is darker, it definitely does not have as much extension over like 10 kHz or so, but at the same time I do find it to be a more forgiving listen overall relative to the Moondrop Chu. The Chu, of course, again, is going to be more technical as a result of its brighter tuning, and if you're after a more analytical listen, the Chu is what you're going to want to go for. I think another really good point of comparison though is actually the CCA CRA. This is actually a very impressive IM. Like the dynamic driver in it sounds very good for, I think it's $15 MSRP. In fact, I would say it's actually more technical and more dynamic than the Moondrop Chu. It sounds noticeably more impactful in the bass, and when it comes to its treble response, while it's not as smooth necessarily as the Moondrop Chu's, it does have more air in my opinion, especially around maybe like 15 kHz or so, where it has a spike. So yeah, if you're looking for like the real diamond in the rough, then I think that the CCA CRA is the IM to go for. I guess the final point of comparison that I can give is to the Moondrop SSR. Relative to the SSR, the Moondrop Chu is less shouty. It's more lower treble oriented though. And I think that the overall tonal balance of the Chu is better, but the Moondrop SSR is still more technical. The SSR just sounds very fast, if that's something that you believe in. At least perceptively, it sounds very fast for a single dynamic driver IM, and faster than the Moondrop Chu. Of course, the SSR is more of a niche option given its high degree of Pina gain. Okay, and I think that does it for my quick review on the Moondrop Chu. Definitely good IM, I would recommend it, and all the more so if you are after those spring ear tips. At the same time, on a more sentimental level maybe, I am not super enthused about it because I do think that Moondrop would benefit from sort of approaching the higher end of the audio market more like they did with the Moondrop S8 and the variations. But yeah, that does it for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one, whenever that might be, given I don't regularly upload anymore on this channel.